Hey everybody, it's still January in 2016. Have y'all got your New Year's resolutions going yet? Or are you sitting there going, I don't really want to go to the gym. I don't really want to diet. What am I doing? I think I'll just stay fat and lazy and be miserable and not feel good. No, wait. Is that my head talking? Maybe it is. I think it is my head talking. Oh, man. Geez. Today's guest is going to tell us a little bit about how to do dieting and nutrition and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So let's do a show, baby, and see what all this business is about. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Laughing with cancer. Let's live life, not just survive. Laughing with cancer. If you're not laughing, life will pass you by.
Welcome once again, my friends, to Laughing with Cancer. I am your host, Elvis Rico. And like I said, have y'all started those New Year's resolutions? Have you? Or have you been sitting around going, I'm going to get to it. I'll start tomorrow. I'll start tomorrow. I'll start my diet tomorrow. You know, a lot of us do. We get the membership at the beginning of the year, and then it takes us 2 weeks before we even get into the gym. But I hope you've at least started your diet. You know what I mean? Because you got to start your diet. You got to start the diet. I myself have been slacking, of course. I say this every time. I'm slacking. Of course, I'm working on my diet. But as far as the gym, I've been slacking. And I have excuses. We all have excuses. But what can you do? You know? There's no point in giving up them excuses, talking about them excuses. I hope you guys enjoyed my last show with my guest, Liam Ryan. He's quite the fighter, man. He was quite the fighter. To having such the head and neck cancer and all that business, and then 10 years later running a marathon. Oh, man. That was an amazing story. I just keep listening to it every time just to hear that story. But, yeah, the new year is starting off with quite the bang, right? We have the presidential debates going on, and you know, Donald Trump could be our next president. that's kind of crazy to think about, but he could actually do it, man. And you know, when Donald first started running, I thought, what a joke. But the more I listened to him, it's like, you know what? I like his points. He's just a little hot-headed. Need to tone it down a little bit, but yeah, that's a little crazy. I mean, I don't know who to believe, really, to tell you the truth. You have the president with his State of the Union address and talking about how everything's good. We need to fight ISIS a little harder, you know, talking about all that. And then we got the politicians saying, nah, Obama's full of baloney. He's not telling us everything's good. Everything's bad. So who do you believe? I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. This should be an interesting year. Unfortunately, the year did start off kind of sad. We had Lemmy Kilmister, who died at the age of 70 from health-related problems. Not sure exactly if it was cancer, but he had a list of all kinds of health issues. But Lemmy, of course, was the lead singer of Moterhead, you know, the song, The Ace of Spades, The Ace of Spades. Yeah, that was Lemmy from Moterhead. Yeah, he passed away. Actually, he passed away on December 29th, so it was close enough to the beginning of the year. His funeral was in 2016, so we counted that as celebrity number one. And then, of course, we had the great boom, 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 ba-da-dum, boom, 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 ba-da-dum, boom. Boom, 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 ba-da-dum, boom. And I'm not talking about Vanilla Ice. I'm talking about the great, under pressure, David Bowie. You know what I mean? He died at age 69 of liver cancer. Nobody knew that he was even sick. You know, you see David Bowie in some of his interviews, and you say, wow, he's awfully skinny, but David Bowie's been around. David Bowie's been a partier, and David Bowie's done some crazy stuff. So he's always been a skinny cat. But yeah, liver cancer got him. Cancer does not discriminate. You know what I mean? Yeah, so David Bowie, rest in peace, brother. He was one crazy cat with them songs, you know what I mean? He had tons. He had tons of songs, tons of albums. And they're saying now that after his death, because he put out an album on Friday, and then Sunday he passed. And they're saying that this might be his first #1 album because of his passing. That's kind of crazy. You know what I mean? So long live David Bowie. You will be missed, my friend. And also, recently, just the other day, actor Alan Rickman died at 69 as well. So that's star number 3. As they say, they come in threes. Alan Rickman, of course, was in movies like Die Hard, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, Harry Potter, and my favorite, of course, Galaxy Quest. He was in quite a few others, but those you might mainly know him from, especially from the Harry Potter. Yeah, he was, and he was pretty funny in Galaxy Quest. But he died of complications of cancer too. So you know what, my friends, cancer does not discriminate. Cancer doesn't care if you're a rock star, if you're a superstar, if you're a Hollywood star. It doesn't care if you're young, old, you know, middle-aged, healthy, you know, not healthy. Cancer does not care. So where do you start? Where do you go from there? Where do you begin by being healthier, by being, you know, cancer-free? Are you ever cancer-free? Or is it just always lurking, waiting to bite? How do you keep it at bay? How do you keep it away? How do you go about keeping yourself healthier, I guess you would say, and a cancer at bay when you're already dealing with cancer? On today's show of Laughing with Cancer, my guest is a registered dietitian and program leader of the Wellspring Cancer Support Agency in Toronto, Ontario, providing nutritional education in the form of lectures and cooking demonstrations. She is also the author of the Essential Cancer Treatment Nutrition Guide and Cookbook, and the editor of the Canadian Dietitian Oncology Network newsletter, and yes, a cancer survivor. When she was first diagnosed at the age of 27 with Hodgkin's lymphoma, she never thought it would turn out to be such a gift. Here to tell her story and to talk a little nutrition is Jean Lamantia. Hello, Jean. How are you? And I hope I pronounced your last name right.
I love how you pronounced it. You had that bit of flair there with it. That's great.
Well, I'm glad. I want to thank you for joining us here on Laughing with Cancer. And I think a lot of people would like to know, because a lot of people would not consider having cancer or getting cancer a blessing or a gift, I guess, depending on the outcome. I have a lot of people that have told me, you know, it did change their life, and they did for the better. So how was at age 27, and you growing up, from what I read, you grew up basically in a healthy environment?
Well, it sounds pretty healthy, didn't it? Because my dad was a greengrocer, so he sold, you know, fresh fruits and vegetables, and, you know, we all worked at the store. And I can't say I always ate well, though. It did sound sort of idyllic, you know, healthy upbringing. But, you know, when you're working, like, you work long hours, the whole family's working, you know, you rush home, have lunch. So it maybe wasn't as great as it sounds.
But you did go to school for human nutrition.
I did, yes.
So you must have always kind of grew up wanting to eat healthy or healthier than normal, I would imagine.
Well, you know, I think one of the things that got me interested in studying nutrition was my own dislike of, you know, the way my body was looking in high school. You know, I tried fad diets, and, you know, much like the typical teen, I think, and, you know, young girls face now is, you know, they're not happy with their bodies. So they do these, you know, rather radical things. And it worked for a while. You know, I got to the ideal weight, and then I thought, oh, okay, great, I'm here. And then you just start eating junk food again, and it goes back on. And, you know, it was just so bad for you, you know, just that up and down yo-yo. And And all of it is really about, like, ultimately you're not listening to your body because you're hungry, but you're denying yourself food, right? And
Yeah.
it definitely got me interested in nutrition, but I always liked sciences. I just knew that I didn't necessarily want to, be a scientist or, work in a laboratory, but I definitely, wanted to study science, and I liked my biology classes in high school and chemistry. And so, yeah, I found a program called Applied Human Nutrition. It was at the University of Guelph, that's in Canada. And it was a great program, a 4-year university honors program. And I just loved it.
Wow. And was it after school whenever you were diagnosed? Was it after or was it during?
Yeah, so it was after. So right out of high school, at that time, high school was 5 years. And then I did my 4-year degree. And then to become a dietitian, you need either a master's degree or an internship. So I did it's called the clinical internship at a large teaching hospital in Toronto. And that's another year of study, and that, very intense year. And I had a first job, like a job contract, and a second job contract. And then I thought, I'm going to go traveling. But, when I was at that second job contract, I remember feeling like this stiff neck. And I complained to the nurses, that I'm working with. I'm like, I have this stiff neck, right? I didn't think anything of it. And then, a few days later, I just mentioned again, the stiff neck. And one of the nurses, they don't let you get away with anything. And they're like, Jean, you've had the stiff neck for a week now. Go to the doctor, right?
Right.
To me, that's all it felt like. And the doctor, I think she did an x-ray on my neck and she didn't see anything. But I described to her this interesting sensation I would have is, if I had alcohol, at that time, another dietitian colleague and I were shooting a lot of pool, and we'd go out and have a beer and shoot pool. And if I had a beer, the pain would shoot down my arm. And I thought that was weird. And I said to the doctor, that makes absolutely no sense at all. She said, that was her answer.
Cuts out the fun of drinking.
Cut back on drinking, because that seemed to be, the problem. And it's not like I was a heavy drinker or anything, but, and then that job contract finished, and I moved from that city back to where my parents were, and I moved all my stuff in with them because I'm still in my 20s. I'm going to go traveling, right, in between job contracts. And I saw my family doctor, and he wasn't the greatest doctor. It's even if you had symptoms for however long, he'd always say, just monitor it and, come back another week or two. That was always his answer.
Basically telling you to rub some dirt on it. You'll be all right in a week.
Yeah. Well, it's always like the symptoms didn't exist until you came to him. Right. And then he always wanted, to give it another week or two. Anyway, so my other week or two, well, I was off. I had plans. I was going to travel to Mexico and study Spanish and go to Central America and, volunteer with this aid organization. I had my next several months all planned out. So I went on my trip, and I was really tired when I was there, but I lived with a host family in Cuernavaca, Mexico. And the host father said, yeah, all the, foreign students that come here, they're always so tired. I think it's the altitude. And okay. So, I was gone for several months. And then when I came back, I just happened to be in a mall, and they had a blood donor clinic. So I thought, okay, I'll give blood because I've given 4 times before and I had my blood donor card. So I gave blood. And then it was like, I knew I was getting sick. You know that feeling? You got a tickle in the back of your throat. You're just like, I'm coming down with something, right? And so at this point, I'm living with my mom because I'd done my traveling. I'd come back, and now I'm just, staying with my parents, getting my resume together to find the next job. And I went to the walk-in clinic because it was Good Friday, just before Easter. And the doctor there said, bronchitis, and gave me a prescription. I thought it was odd because I'd never had bronchitis before. And by Monday, my mom, who's a former nurse, said, Jean, this is not getting better. If it was if it was a bacterial thing, the antibiotics would have helped. So go back. So this time I saw my family doctor who I'd seen, the previous, let's say October, and this was now April. And this time he did a chest x-ray. And then he phoned me at home that afternoon. So that was the first time my family doctor had ever phoned me. And he said, there's something on the x-ray. I'm going out of town, but it can't wait till I get back. I want you to see someone else. And
he called you that same day?
Yeah, same day that I had the x-ray.
Yeah, it's always never a good sign when they call you the same day you see him. Right? That's what happened to me when they called me right away. I was like, you're calling me a little too soon?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's when it began. Of course, they don't know for sure, but, they gave me a couple of options, but both of them were cancer. And then they have to, I had to have a surgery to have a lymph node removed, to have it, biopsied. So, it took a week to get the surgery appointment, and then it takes another week to get the pathology report. And then I have the diagnosis. Well, then before the oncologist wants to see you, then please go for this CAT scan. So it takes a week to get the CAT scan appointment and get that done. And then they said, okay, come now for a bone marrow test. So by the time I got to actually see the oncologist, it was a month since, I had given blood at that blood donor clinic. I did call the blood donation center, though, and say, listen, don't use my blood because I'm sick and they think I have cancer. So I don't want you giving that to somebody else.
Right.
But I think really, once I got my diagnosis and I started reading about it, one thing caught my eye, which was it said that this particular type of cancer, which was Hodgkin's lymphoma, is sometimes reacts to alcohol. And I could trace that symptom back to that stiff neck that I had, that when I would have a beer and the pain would shoot down my arm. Wow. Right?
Would it be like when you had a beer, like as soon as you took a drink, a few seconds later, you'd have a shooting pain? Or was it like a little while after you've had maybe a beer or two and then you start feeling the pain?
Sometimes I would only just have one beer. And if I did have two, that would be it. But maybe, a few sips in, like it was pretty quick. Right. Wow. And it wouldn't be a shooting pain, more like a stabbing pain. Like it wasn't so severe that I couldn't function, but it was an ache, and it just went all the way down to my hand.
Something like you're probably going, well, something's telling me I shouldn't drink.
Yeah. And that's what I did when I was away on my trip. I just didn't have any alcohol, and it seemed to be solved, but I was tired. But I think really what happened was I had the cancer back then. That stiff neck was the first sign. And then when I gave blood at that blood donor clinic, well, that just weakened my immune system to the point that the cancer cells just took off. And I had a mass growing in my chest that it was actually starting. It was a bit like alien. Like it started to like push out. Like I was developing a lump that it's like so big I could actually see it.
Oh, wow.
And that mass ended up being the size of a grapefruit by the time, that month between I gave blood at the blood donor clinic. And if I had my arms down by my side and I just gently, squeezed my arms in, I could feel the lumps in my, under my arms, because there are lymph nodes under the arms too. And this, mass coming out of my chest. And so by the time I got there, my lungs were so full of lymphatic fluid, I could hardly breathe. I was so short of breath. And, I'm 27 years old. I'm fit. I'm healthy. I just, backpacked through Central America,
Right.
And I can't walk up the stairs without having to stop. I'm so short of breath.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So they did the bone marrow test. And normally that would just be part of the staging. They do the bone marrow test and send you home and say, okay, we'll call you when we have time, to start your chemo. And they just said, we're admitting you. We have more staging tests to do. I had to have something called a gallium scan. And they said, well, we're not even going to wait for that. We're just going to start the chemotherapy. And they took the fluid out of my lungs. That was a very interesting sensation because there was so much fluid.
Oh, wow.
I think about, I only know it in metric. Let me think.
A lot.
A lot. A pint and a half, let's say.
Okay.
But, like a liter and a half, something in, for those who know the metric system. Yeah. And, so then that started the whole cancer treatment.
And did you already tell your family about it at that point? Did they already know, or were they already involved in helping you, what you had to do and all that kind of stuff? I know you had probably a lot on your plate at that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we pretty much told them right away. So it was my mom who actually came with me to this doctor appointment when, the doctor said, well, it's one of two things. And of course, both options were cancer. And then I had the absolute extreme example from my parents. My mother, who's a former nurse, just thought I was done for. And that's because when she was a nurse, she had a young patient who had Hodgkin's lymphoma and he died. And it just stuck in her memory that this is what happens because she'd seen it, right?
Yeah, right.
And my father was on the other end of the spectrum where he was just in complete denial and, he wouldn't believe that it was cancer, and I'd say, well, they only gave two options and they're both cancer. No, he needed to see the have the biopsy and have the report. And so that was frustrating in its own right. Because it's like, I wanted to start dealing with this. And it was, another couple of weeks before we had that definitive diagnosis.
Right. Yeah, I think my mom was the same way whenever I was first diagnosed. She was like, well, it's the good kind of cancer that you have, because I have CLL. So basically that's the good kind of leukemia. If you're going to get leukemia to have, that's the better kind to get. Mm-hmm. So, she was like, well, it's not that bad. And you're going to be like, well, I still have to do chemo and stuff like that. So
yeah,
she was kind of like in that denial area too. More would rather have her head in the sand and say, oh no, everything's fine.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it's funny. This is very Canadian stereotypes, feeding into every stereotype you have probably, but the one name that my mother mentioned when we were at the doctor and he was telling us, could be Hodgkin's lymphoma. And you can tell me if you know this name or not. My mother just said, Mario Lemieux.
No.
Do you know that name?
No.
So he's a famous Canadian hockey player who played, I believe, for Pittsburgh. And he had Hodgkin's lymphoma and he survived. And so that was like her grasp of hope that she knew someone, young and that had this disease and beat it.
Right. And so, excuse me. So you went through, how long did it take before the doctors were finally, okay, we're done with you. You're good. We've gotten rid of it.
You know what? That is a great question because let me tell you what happened. So I had 6.5 months of chemotherapy, which was, I don't know what your experience was like, but it was, it was very challenging. And then a month of radiation. And when it was my last day of radiation, I actually thought the doctor was going to meet me at the radiation suite and shake my hand. It's like, you did it. Your cancer's cured. This is your last treatment. You're done. And nothing. It was like, okay, here's your appointment card. And so the appointment card was, 3 months. So I go back for my 3 months and I'm thinking, okay, he just needed to look at all the test results and all that stuff. And now he's going to tell me, you're fine, you're cured, you're good. Nope. So they do a chest x-ray and they take, blood tests and they weigh you. They do the physical exam. In my case, they feel all the lymph node areas right in the neck and under the arms. And it's okay, see you in 3 months. And I was stunned. It's like, that's it? And it was a turning point because it began the cycle of fear and anxiety because I'd leave that appointment thinking, oh, okay, what a relief. I don't have, it didn't come back. I'm okay. But then this would gradually, that would be replaced by,
what if?
Oh, I have to go back. And if it wasn't there the last time, it could be there this time. Otherwise, why else would they schedule these appointments 3 months apart?
Right. And
so it would gradually build and build and build to the point that before one of my 3 month follow-ups, I worried myself into a migraine headache. I'd never had a migraine in my life, but I was so stressed and anxious that are they going to tell me it's back? Like, is it back? And it was just ruining my health, this fear and anxiety and hypervigilance, right? I even remember, I told you about the alcohol. So after my treatment, I'm, starting to get back to a normal life, have a bit of a social life, go out with my friends, and I had a drink and I had a bad headache. And immediately I'm thinking, brain mets. Oh my God, it's back and it's gone to my brain.
Oh no.
And I'm so fearful and paranoid. I pick up the phone, I call the cancer center where I had my treatment, and I page the oncology resident. And he gets on the phone and I'm like, I had Hodgkin's lymphoma, I had my treatment, and I had a beer or whatever, and now I've got this headache and I think I have brain mets. And he kind of laughed at me. And he's like, you're just hungover, like you're fine, it's fine. And it was just like, well, first of all, it was kind of humiliating, right? It's like, I am paranoid, like I'm scared out of my wits, and you're laughing it off like I'm just some joke, right? And at the same time, I'm telling myself, Jean, you got to just get a grip here. Like, this fear is just running your life.
It's eating at you.
Yeah, exactly. And it's ruining my health. And then it's like, oh my God, like, it's like, turn around and look at the wall. You see that nutrition degree that, where you graduated with honors and you got one of the coveted internships that people are, clamoring over each other to get? Like, use your brain, like, figure this out. And, I started hitting the books and I haven't stopped. And what has helped reduce the fear is, when I read a study that shows that I actually can have an impact on my immune system, I can strengthen my immune system, and my immune system can protect me from cancer by doing certain things. Or I can eat certain foods, and that's going to reduce inflammation. And chronic inflammation is the starting point of cancer. Right. And I can eat certain foods that can act directly on cancer cells and just sort of stop them right at the beginning stage before they can even have a chance to turn into a tumor. It's like, I didn't feel powerless anymore. It's like, oh my God, I have choices here. And, it really dawned on me. I'm going back for these 3-month appointments. My doctors and the nurses, they were not specialists in preventing cancer.
Right.
They were doing their specialty, which was detection at that stage. They had already done their specialty, which was treatment, but they were not prevention specialists. The advice I got from my doctor was just eat a healthy diet. And okay, yeah, that might do it, but it just didn't seem like enough. That didn't take away my fear. Right. I'm very like, I need to get to the bottom of things. I need to understand stuff. That's why, I love actually reading the research, nutrition research. I just love getting my nose into all these studies and, looking at the details. Some people, that would be torture for them, but it's fun for me. And, that's what kind of gave me back my power or my sense of control, is that I can do things every day that can help me feel like I'm doing something to fight this cancer.
Right.
And, this is, one of the big reasons why I write my blog, and why I wrote my book, and, why I do my, one-on-one counseling and my group mentorship with people. And my book was targeted more for the newly diagnosed person, because I know there's so much fear of the unknown. Right. But I really focus my blog and my one-on-one counseling and my group mentorship more on this particular stage, which is my cancer treatment's done. Now what? Right? Right. Because people are like highly motivated to like stay out of that cancer center, right? I do not want this coming back, either a recurrence or a new primary. And I'm highly motivated because I know how terrible that is to go through cancer treatment. And, that's when I want to say, listen, I can help you here. Right. And I really feel it's certainly in the nutrition field, there's a gap because there's lots of dietitians who work at cancer centers that really do a great job helping you manage your symptoms and side effects of cancer treatment with nutrition.
Right.
And that's a lot of what I included in my book. But then once you're done treatment, maybe you find a nutrition specialist on your own, but maybe cancer is not their specialty, right? So I really felt like there was a gap, and it's just the area I want to focus on, obviously, since I've been through it, and I'm still, high risk for certain cancers because of my treatment. Right.
Now, is your book, would it help somebody who not necessarily is going through any kind of treatment, but has, like for myself, I did treatment in 2006, but since then my numbers have slowly been growing. And of course my doctors tell me I'm eventually going to have to do chemo again. But in the meantime, does your book help for people just to maybe eat healthier and prevent any reoccurrence kind of thing? Do you know what I mean?
Right, exactly. Yeah, great question. So there is a chapter in there called chapter 4, and it's about using all the tools in your toolbox. So that answers the question that you're talking about, which is how can I use nutrition to, maybe in your case, delay that time that I'm going to have chemo again.
Yeah, because a lot of,
or maybe get those numbers going in a different direction. So, and the recipes, I know you've got a copy of my book, and thank you for ordering that. The recipes have a little, like a little index in the top left corner. It says ideally what the recipe is for. So the ones that say risk reduction,
right,
those are the ones for the stage that you're at.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that are at the watch and wait stage. You have symptoms, but they're not severe enough for treatment yet. So yeah, that's where and fatigue is of course one of the worst as far as, and there's nothing that they can really do until your fatigue, they can do treatment if your fatigue becomes, way too much. And that's one of my main issues is fatigue, constant fatigue. That makes it harder for me to get to the gym, makes it harder for me to do certain things. Right. And so that's changing my diet. I diet now, and I've been trying to go to the gym more when I can get motivated enough. But as far as nutrition, I try to eat right and cut out processed carbs and different stuff like that. But a lot of times it's like, where do I start as far as a decent breakfast, as far as a decent snack? How often should I eat? How often should I, because some days, you're like, I just don't feel like eating. But of course, that's not good for you either, not to eat.
Right. Yeah, I'd put it this way. Considering there's an underlying cause for the fatigue, I would say, nutrition is not going to take away all of that fatigue. Or let me say, good nutrition is not going to remove all of that fatigue, but poor nutrition can certainly make it worse.
Right.
Right. So I think you hit some of the key things. You have to start off the day with a healthy, balanced breakfast. And then, as you said, pay attention to the timing after that, because a big part of how poor nutrition can contribute to more fatigue is through the effect on the blood sugar, right? So if you're eating, those processed carbs, which you've removed. So if one person were eating processed carbs, that could result in a rapid rise in the blood sugar, which gives your body an insulin release and then a rapid fall in the blood sugar. And that'll leave you with a low energy feeling, right?
Right.
So you want to use carbohydrates that are unprocessed, right? The whole grains. And you want to combine them with proteins to get even a slower absorption. And then you want to eat probably every 3, maybe 4 hours. Okay. So it's a meal or snack every 3 to 4 hours. So it's almost like mini meals throughout the day rather than any one big meal at any time.
Right. And proportionate meals.
That will help to stabilize the blood sugar more.
Right. And speaking of sugar, I mean, they say that, cancer feeds off of your glucose, kind of like crack for cancer, I guess you'd say. So what's the difference between the natural sugars you get from fruits and stuff like that, as opposed to the other kind of sugar that, the granulated sugar that you would get or brown sugar? What's the difference as far as somebody who wants to cut out the sugar, maybe because they have diabetes or they want to help with the prevention of their cancer to grow?
Well, I think the biggest, most important difference is the package that it comes in, right? If you eat an apple, sure, it's got natural sugar in it, but it's also got a type of fiber called pectin. It's got all these great phytonutrients with it. It's got vitamin C and other important vitamins. It's worth it. It's worth, taking that sugar in because you get all these other beneficial things in there versus, drinking a soda pop. There's no benefit. Well, right. Hydration, but okay. Right? There's no silver lining to that at all. All you're doing is raising your blood sugar, and you've got a lot of fructose in there, and fructose is going to store itself as visceral fat, that deep belly fat, which is going to contribute to inflammation, which is going to drive cancer. Okay. So not all sugar is the same. You want to have, sugar in a form of, in its naturally occurring form. So in fruits, in whole grains, in vegetables, right? That's how you want to consume it.
But should you still not eat so much fruit during the day? Like, say you like making smoothies with, lots of fruits and yogurt and stuff. Should you not have so much fruit per day? I mean, because since it does have the sugar in it, other than the other vitamins that you're still getting.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, it kind of depends on the particular type of cancer and what other issues a person has, like in terms of, is there a body weight issue, or is there, diabetes or pre-diabetes, all of those things. But it's probably a good idea not to go crazy with the fruit. And, as a general rule, maybe 3 fruits a day spread out throughout the day. And you also would want to combine fruit with protein or other food. So, for example, in the afternoon, if you want to have a snack, you want to have an apple or a pear or something, have a few almonds with it or a few walnuts, right? Okay. Then you get protein in the nut, and you combine that with the natural sugar in the fruit, and you can slow down the rise in blood sugar after eating that. So it doesn't change the amount of sugar that you're consuming. What it changes is how quickly that sugar, that natural sugar, gets into your bloodstream. Okay. So there are ways to be strategic about it, but one of them is, not to go crazy with the juicing or the smoothies where you're just drinking straight, fruits together. Right.
Yeah, I tried the juicing for a little bit and I just couldn't do it. There's just so many recipes you can make where you're like, okay, I can't do this. It's too much of a to-do.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
But that's interesting. I've wondered, because I am diabetic myself, and type 2. I don't do insulin or nothing like that. I have it under control. But I always wonder about, if I make me a smoothie, is that too much fruits that I put in there? Because I like to, do mango and pineapple, strawberries with some yogurt and some protein powder in there, and do a smoothie like that. But then I also wonder, am I doing too much sugar? What else has sugar that I've eaten today? Even the eggs, I have a little bit of sugar in them. And
right. Those are excellent questions to be asking yourself, right? Because that's all very relevant. So you're on the right track with doing that. And I'm glad you mentioned that you add protein powder and yogurt to the smoothie, because again, with the protein in there, you slow down how quickly the natural sugar from those fruit gets into the bloodstream. And in the case, you might know this from some of I don't know if you've talked to a dietitian about the diabetes before, but They will give you serving sizes of various fruits depending on the amount of sugar in them. So, for example, strawberries, a whole cup, like an 8-ounce cup, is considered a serving, right? But other things that are sweeter, like the mango and the pineapple, it's closer to half a cup, right? Okay. So, in that case, let's say if you had one serving altogether, a quarter cup of mango and pineapple combined and a half a cup of strawberries combined together would be one serving, right?
Right.
And if you're making more than that, then what I would say is the full recipe of smoothie, you wouldn't maybe want to drink that whole thing at one time.
Cut it in half.
Yeah, and you could, let's say, have half at breakfast and half at morning snack, right? Because the total amount of sugar is now being spread out, 3 hours apart, and it's easier for your body to handle. But also you can, in your case, hopefully you can test your blood sugar too to see what effect it has.
Oh, yeah, right? I do. I definitely test mine at least 3 times a day.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's wonderful to know, because that was one of the questions that's always going through my mind, especially in the mornings when I really don't feel like cooking something up or whatever. Should I do a smoothie? Should I just do a protein drink? Should I, just have just a couple of scrambled eggs, not make a full omelet? Or, what should I have? Oatmeal? Should it be just plain oatmeal? What do I use? What kind of butter? Should I even put butter in it? Should I do, all those kind of things go through your head.
I'll give you a tip that you can use with the oatmeal and with the smoothie is add some cinnamon.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. And there's been some studies in people with diabetes that cinnamon can actually lower the glycemic effect. Right?
Okay.
So whenever you have something where it's compatible, like from a culinary standpoint, add cinnamon. In fact, all the herbs and spices are really great. And I always encourage my clients to try and add at least one herb or spice at every meal. So in this case, if it's missing from breakfast, you can use cinnamon. Ginger is another one that tastes good with most breakfast food. Like it might work in the smoothie too. But cinnamon is the one that it's been tested in people with diabetes and shown to have some effect.
Now, when you do your lectures and your cooking demonstrations, is that what you basically are talking about also? Is it comes with the cancer treatment, people that have cancer or dealing with cancer?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I have a 7-week group mentorship program that's called My Cancer Treatment is Finished. Now what? And I talk to people about basically the 5 sort of key areas that I like them to focus on. So the first one is nutrition. And in this case, we talk about foods that can either support the immune system, reduce chronic inflammation, or act on cancer cells directly. Then we also talk about exercise and how not just, yes, it's good for you, but some specifics around exercise and how to fuel properly before and after exercise, and just some general tips like to make it easier for people to stick to it. We also talk about, let me think, the stress reduction and how managing stress. If we go back to, if I use myself as an example, when I was so fearful and anxious about cancer coming back into my life, that fear was creating stress, and that stress was compromising my immune system.
Right.
So ironically, the very thing I didn't want to happen, I was actually promoting in my own body because of the fear, and it was just out of control.
Right.
So stress has a very strong impact on the immune system. And the immune system is one of the key ways that is going to help your body to defend itself.
Right. I know being at first, when I was at the first watch and wait, every little thing I was wondering, is that a symptom? I have a pain here. I have a pain in my neck. Is that my my glands swelling. I have a pain. You know, after a while, I had to figure, you know what? It's just a pain. Maybe I should go. I should go to the gym and work that certain area out, and blame it on the workout. You know, I lifted weights a little too hard, and that's why I'm having that pain. Kind of trick my own brain. And
yeah,
like
I call that hypervigilance, right? It's like, oh, is that something? Is that something? Right? It'll just drive you mad.
Exactly.
Right? And a big part of that, I feel, is like you've lost trust in your body, right? This thing it snuck up on you. It's like, how did I not know this? How did I not know I had cancer? And it's like, it's crushing because I thought I knew my body, right? Like I thought I had this two-way communication going, and I thought it's like snuck up on me. And how did that happen, right? So I really recommend regular meditation or quiet time and just reconnecting with the body, because you can't be flying off to the doctor every 2 days because you've got a little twinge, right? You have to know, okay, when is this something that I need to pay attention to and get it looked at, right?
Right.
And, you know, there's that healthy balance, you know, of, you know, I listened to your interview last week with Liam, and like, even after all he'd been through, he does, what did he call it? He says, I did the man thing.
Yes.
And ignore my symptoms, right?
Exactly.
So you don't want that either. And so reconnecting with the body, like I think we all have a real strong sense of our bodies and a strong intuition, but we lose faith in it when we're diagnosed with cancer, or, you know, we're used to ignoring it. And part of what I work on in my group mentorship is let's rebuild that trust in our intuition. And we have a better sense of, okay, this is something. I can't put my finger on it, but something's not right. Something is not right, and I need to get this looked into, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, you have quite the resume, I'd have to say, for what all you do. You also do the Canadian Dietitian Oncology Network newsletter. Mm-hmm. So then basically you just talk mostly about what we've been talking about, I would say.
Yeah. So I should update that on the website, but I've retired from that. But basically what it was is keeping other oncology dietitians, which is, you know, quite a specialty in and of itself, up to date on what's going on, right? So as I said, I like to read the research, call me crazy, and I like to, you know, write about it. And that's what I do for my blog. I have this blog called Cancer Bites, and I read the studies, and I really do my best to translate it into regular people speak, right?
Right.
To let people know, well, what does this study mean? And, you know, for example, there was one recently on, in the breast cancer community, there's different subtypes of breast cancer, right? And it depends on what receptors you have. So there's estrogen receptors or progesterone receptors or HER2 receptors, and you could be negative or positive in any of those. And if you're negative in all three, they call this triple negative. And the triple negative group are harder to treat, and also they don't have a targeted therapy, okay? And so one nutrition study showed that actually maybe nutrition can be the targeted therapy that triple negative breast cancer patients need, because it turns out one key amino acid is needed in the pathway for this particular subtype of cancer, and it's called methionine. So if you restrict your diet so that you're not consuming any methionine or very little, then you're basically choking off the supply chain for this type of cancer. So for example, I wrote a blog on that because I think, wow, here's one way of nutrition not even being just preventative. I shouldn't say just, not only being preventative, but actually being a targeted therapy in and of itself, right?
Right.
So I just love that stuff. And, you know, that's the kind of thing I write about in my blog.
Right on. Okay, one last question. Say somebody has a sweet tooth and, you know, and they know they can't eat candy and nothing like that, and they're trying to stay away from the sugar. They want to do that. What's your favorite go-to snack that you would suggest somebody eat for that sweet tooth? And go.
Okay, so I'm going to answer that, but I'm also going to, become the dietitian here. Okay, I would say very dark chocolate, like 70% or higher.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
that would be that. However, let's just say that it's you. Let's just pretend that you've got a sweet tooth. And so what I would, this brings up, and this is something else I cover in my 7-week group, the idea of cravings and mindless eating. Okay. So a craving, and this is pretty clearly a craving, but I'll just tell you what's the difference between a craving and hunger. There's a couple of key differences. One is where you feel it in your body. So when you haven't eaten for 5 hours, where do you feel that hunger in your body?
In your stomach.
Yes. And when you're thinking about the sweets and you want to have the sweet, where do you feel that in your body?
Your head. You're just
or even just
it.
Close your eyes right now, Rick, and just like, you see your favorite sweet treat and you can you taste it. Like,
yeah.
Are you experiencing anything like really?
Yeah, I could tell you my go-to is always the bottle caps, the candy, the root beer bottle caps.
Okay, so you're picturing those bottle caps. You've got the package. It's in your hand. You're opening up the package. You're going to put it in your mouth. What are you experiencing? Any physical sensation?
I don't know. Is
your mouth starting to water?
Yeah, actually it is.
Yeah,
thinking about it.
So that's the difference. So physical hunger you feel in your stomach, a craving you feel in your mouth.
Wow.
So, and what can happen though sometimes is people can use the word hunger to describe both of these. So that's one key thing, now the difference there. The other difference is if you were craving bottle caps and you went to the fridge and ate some celery, would your craving for bottle caps go away?
Probably not.
No, it wouldn't. And again, if you had a physical hunger and you thought, I'd really go for a sandwich right now, and you look in the fridge and there isn't a sandwich, but instead there's some, dinner left over from last night, you eat that instead, would that satisfy your hunger?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So that's another sort of distinction between physical hunger and craving. So when you have a craving, nothing else will satisfy it. You can eat through the whole fridge, but until you have that thing that your body's asking for, it's not going to stop. And that's because food can actually treat our symptoms, and particular, sweets, right? And how they do that is they allow for a release of serotonin in the brain, or they allow for a release of endorphins. And it's like they treat it, right? It's almost like Prozac, in a different package.
Right.
And so what you need to do is, instead of saying, okay, well, what can I eat instead of bottle caps that's sweet but just not as bad for me, is think of it this way. A craving is your body's way of talking to you. It's got a message for you. It's trying to communicate with you. And just go deeper. So you can first of all recognize, I'm not hungry. This is a craving. Then ask yourself, what is my body trying to tell me? And typically it's something like, I'm tired. I'm worried about something. I'm stressed. I'm really preoccupied with this thing, or, I'm feeling overwhelmed, right?
Or maybe just bored.
Bored. That's another one. Yeah. So what you need to do is treat the source of the craving. Okay.
I got you.
So you got to go deeper than the surface level. So if you're bored, well, you need to, call somebody over, or play some cards, do something that takes away that boredom. If you're tired, well, you need to go to bed. I know a lot of clients that I've had in the past, they'd ask me this question, evening time especially. And I can relate. Like, you're sitting on the couch, maybe watching TV, and you're too tired to actually, get up and go through your evening routine, right? To brush your teeth and, turn off all the lights and do that whole thing. But yet it's easier to just go to the kitchen and get something to eat.
Right.
Right. but
Right.
because it does in a way, satisfy that craving. Or procrastination, that's another one. Like if you've got like something you need to do, but you're just your mind's not ready to focus on it, you will like go through a craving. So just think about that, Rick, as you experience a craving, or anyone else listening. It's like, what is my body trying to tell me here? And then give it that. And it will help it might not take away the craving completely, but it can certainly help to reduce the severity of it and the intensity of it. So, start having a two-way conversation there. Does that make any sense?
No, and I've never really thought of it that way, but yeah, you need to think about it and go a little deeper, like you said.
Yeah.
And actually ask yourself, what are you wanting? What is your body asking for? Do you really need it? Is it a need or a want?
Mm-hmm.
But wow. Well, that's a lot of, actually, you explained a lot to me today. I want to thank you for that, Jean.
Oh, you're welcome.
Let us know, where can everybody find you? Where can they find you on Facebook, Twitter? Where can they get your book? I mean, I know where I got your book, but is there any place else other than Amazon?
Yeah, Amazon's probably the best place. But any major bookstore, I mean, it's distributed throughout Canada, the United States, Great Britain. So it's in all of those places. And so, yeah, Amazon, any online bookseller, like it's regular mainstream bookstores. If they don't have it on the shelf, which a lot of bookstores, I mean, they don't carry, every title. So, but they can always get it, right? Because it's with like a regular book distributor. So that's where you can get the book. And it's called the Essential Cancer Treatment Nutrition Guide and Cookbook. And I realize that's a bit of a mouthful, but you can also just search for my name too. And the first name is Jean, Jean, and the last name is Lamantia. Although I like the way you say it too, Rick.
Lamantia.
Yeah, see? Lamantia. And that's also my website, is my name, jeanlamantia.com. So you can go to the website and sign up, or, read the blog. There's also right now on my website, I have a free online training.
Okay.
It's the top 3 mistakes cancer survivors make that keep them living in fear. And just, simple strategies to take back your power that cancer has taken from you and get on your way to, being cancer free. So you can sign up for that webinar. That's free. And I also have a group for people who want, they want to feel like they're doing everything they can to be cancer free. But unlike me, they don't like, searching the archives and reading the research. They just want someone who can, has the training to be able to do that. I have a program called the Thriving After Cancer Coaching and Support Program. So what we do is we get online together every month, and I deliver a new training, and then we have a live Q&A. People can ask questions. You had great questions, Rick, today.
Oh, well, thank you.
And, we just stay in contact, and, that's available virtually. So anyone anywhere in the world, as long as you've got internet hookup, then you can be in touch that way and participate in the trainings.
Wow. Okay. Well, there was one other thing I wanted to ask you about supplements and vitamins and stuff like that. I know there's a thing that my girlfriend likes to push, is called Juice Plus. Mm-hmm. Have you ever heard of that?
Yes, we have that here in Canada too.
What do you think of that?
So I like the idea behind it, where it's, fruits and vegetables and processed, in the way down to this, chewy, gummy supplement that you can have. And the idea is that you can, even if you're not eating all your fruits and vegetables, you get the nutrients from the fruits and vegetables in this supplement.
Yeah.
So I like, I'm on board with that. I like the convenience of it. But when I've met with, Juice Plus salespeople in the past who wanted me to, sell their product, it's like, I wanted to know what was in it. Like, I wanted to know, well, how much vitamin B6 is in here, or how much vitamin C is actually in the product? Because, as much as I want everyone to get their minimum amounts, I also don't want them to exceed their maximums either, because, that can create other problems. And that information just wasn't available. So I really kind of made me a little leery. Like I wouldn't, if I'm recommending this to someone, I need to know more. Like I need to know what levels are in there.
That was kind of one of the questions I kind of had run through my head too, is like, how much vitamins are in there? What, you know, what exactly, how much doses are we getting the amount that we should be getting every day? Like you said, or are we getting too much? So that was one of the things I was kind of wondering.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, here's my overall opinion that I have developed after, you know, being in this profession for a couple of decades. And that is, you know, I really do believe that there are really important nutrients in the food that we eat. But when you when you extract it and isolate it and take it down to the one, you know, active ingredient that you think is doing all the work and, you know, put that in a pill form and take it as a supplement, I think the effect is not the same.
Yeah.
You know, and I really would urge people to try as much as they can to get it from their diet.
There you go.
Choose their whole unprocessed grains, the fruits, the vegetables, the herbs and spices. Don't forget about those. They're important phytonutrients too, right?
Right.
And the probiotics and the prebiotics. There's all kinds of great stuff in food. And that's what I like to promote. Just
take the extra time and make yourself something to eat, basically.
Yeah.
That's healthy for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right on.
Yeah, if that can be done. And I'm pretty, you know, living in the real world when it comes to that. You know, I have 2 kids and, you know, busy household. So I'm not going to tell you that you know, need to be on one of these programs where you've got to chain yourself to the stove and just be cooking, you know, all day, every day. And, you know, because some of these regimens that are out there, you know, they sound fabulous, but honestly, like once you're done cancer treatment and, you know, you want to go back to your job or you want to be more involved in your children's lives or whatever the case might be, they're just not sustainable.
Right. Well, Jean, I want to thank you so much for all the information you've been giving. You've kind of opened my eyes a little bit too, and I'm sure you're going to open a lot of other people's eyes on this subject. I want to thank you so much for being on the show. And if there's any other way that people can get a hold of you, just make sure that you let me know.
Okay.
You know, let me know on your Facebook. I want to thank you so much again for being on the show. And we'll talk to you again, I hope.
You're welcome. And thank you for this podcast, Rick. You're doing such a great thing for the cancer community. So,
well, thank you.
Please,
I appreciate it.
I hope you're going to continue and keep going. It's so great.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much, Jean Lamantia. All righty.
Bye, Rick.
Bye. All right. Well, that was Jean Lamantia. And like she said, her book is called The Essential Cancer Treatment Nutrition Guide and Cookbook. And I thought she had a lot of eye-opening subjects that I never thought about. So I hope you guys loved the interview. And I definitely want to have her on the show again. You know, talk a little bit more about when we do nutrition again, maybe more about diet and stuff like that. But hey, make sure you guys go to my website. It's www.laughingwithcancerpodcast.com. Leave a comment and feel free to go to the show notes and pics and check it out. And go to my iTunes. All right, go to iTunes. Look up Laughing with Cancer. And give me a 5-star review, 5-star rating and review. I would love it. Go to my Twitter. It's at Elvis Rico or at Laugh with Cancer. And I'm on Stitcher, of course. I'm like the wind, baby. I am everywhere. I am everywhere. So, once again, we've gone a little long, but not too long for some important nutrition information. And remember, get those resolutions started. Get those resolutions going. All right? Try to stay as healthy as you can, especially if you're dealing with cancer. In other words, peace, love, and stay laughing.
Laughing with Cancer podcast.com.